Welcome to the Writing Center at PVCC. Today, we're going to talk about tips and tricks for reading scholarly articles. If you haven't already checked it out, see our video on the parts of scholarly articles. Now, let's look at a few things we might want to keep in mind when we're reading a scholarly article for a research project. First, what is your research question? Often, the scholarly article you're reading will contain a good deal of information, and sometimes not all of it is relevant to your research question. By keeping your question in mind, you can be sure you're taking note of information specifically pertaining to your topic. It's also important to remember that just because information is interesting, that doesn't mean it's pertinent to your essay. Second, it's important to know whether the research you're doing is qualitative or quantitative. In qualitative research, you're mostly looking for claims made by authors supported by evidence using quotes and interpretation. In quantitative research, you're more interested in data-driven information and statistics that utilize charts and graphs. Qualitative research is generally done in the humanities, while quantitative research tends to be more involved in STEM courses. Third, focus on the sections of the scholarly article that will be most important to your research. When writing a qualitative research paper, you might focus more on the introduction, discussion, and conclusion. When you're writing a quantitative research paper, you may be more interested in the methods and results, i.e. the data of the study. Both types of research papers will consider all sections. You might just spend more time in other places according to your type of research. Fourth, spend time figuring out what the author is trying to say. What is their research question? Their thesis statement? How do they support their claims? It's important to really understand what they are saying so that you don't misrepresent their ideas. Finally, after you are certain you understand the author's claims and methods of research, ask yourself how valid the research and conclusion are. Are the results biased? Is there potential for a conflict of interest? How well do they support their thesis? Do the methods of the study account for all variables? Where are the weak points of the study? And lastly, what are the author's credentials? Do they have a degree, come from a reputable source like a college or university? Can we trust them? All of these questions are vital to keep in mind while reading a scholarly article. Not only will these questions help improve your research process, but it will help you evaluate and understand the information you're reading. Next, we have some tips and tricks for keeping track of and comprehending the information in a scholarly article. The first tip is to take effective notes as you read. This might mean highlighting sections of an article you've printed out or copying quotes or sections into a different document. But remember, when you later have to cite this information in your research project, you'll most likely need to know the page numbers from the specific article. You might consider making note of the page number and location of the quote or information, or color coding your highlighting to match your notes to their appropriate scholarly article. For example, you may designate a section of your notes as blue to match the blue highlighting you've used on a particular scholarly article. Additionally, you might find it useful to take notes in the margins of a printed document. Another tip involves the graphics used in a scholarly article. Graphs, charts, and images help us understand the numbers that correlate to the results of a study. Some students may find the statistical numbers in a study easier to comprehend when they're represented in this way. This can be especially useful when doing a quantitative research project for a STEM-based class that is concerned with the results of a study. Next, in your own words, break down and summarize the author's main points, such as their hypothesis or thesis statement, their supporting points and evidence, and what the essential findings of the study are. Not only does this extract information you'll likely need for your own research project, but by rephrasing these points into your own words, you'll gain a better understanding of how the scholarly article works as a whole. To wrap it up, take your new understanding of the article and draw your own conclusions. What biases might the author have? Does the author's conclusion make sense based on the evidence they provide? It doesn't do you any good to use a scholarly article for your research project if the information inside is being misrepresented in order to bolster the original author's claims. Finally, for more help understanding and reading scholarly articles, and if you haven't already, check out our video, The Parts of a Scholarly Article, or schedule an in-person or Zoom appointment with the Writing Center. We'd be happy to help you with this and any other writing assistance you might need.